Good morning, students. Today, we'll be discussing the surface anatomy of humerus. Humerus is the longest and it is the largest bone of the upper limb. It consists of three parts, that is the proximal part, the shaft, and the distal part. And all three parts have different important anatomical landmarks. The proximal part of the humerus, it is articulating with the scapula to form glenohumeral joint. Okay, so that there is movement at the shoulder. And distally, the humerus is articulating with the radius and ulna to form the elbow joint. Now, in the proximal end, there is head, anatomical neck, greater tubercle, lesser tubercle. Okay. So, each one of them has its peculiar feature. This is the head. This is the head of the humerus. Okay. This head is a hemispherical shape with hyaline cartilage covering so that it has a smooth articular surface, because in the end this head of the humerus has to articulate with the glenoid cavity to form the shoulder joint. Okay. Now in the anatomical position, the head is facing medially, superiorly and posterior direction, so that it can articulate with the glenoid fossa of the scapula. Then in the proximal end, we have the anatomical neck. Now what is this anatomical neck? The anatomical neck is a slight narrow kind of a space which is below the articular surface of the head. Why is it important? Because here the shoulder joint capsule is being attached. Then we have greater tubercle. Now where is it the greater tubercle? Greater tubercle is the most lateral portion. Most lateral portion of the proximal end of the humerus. Now this greater tubercle, if you touch the bone, it consists of three smooth and flat impressions which are posterior superior aspect. Why is it like that? Because this smooth surface is giving attachment to the muscle from superior to inferior. Okay. Now, when you see the greater tubercle posteriorly, there is attachment of three muscles from superior to inferior. First is supraspinatus, then is infraspinatus, and then teres minor. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. Okay. Now the deltoid, it covers the lateral aspect of the greater tubercle. So that why do deltoid cover the lateral aspect of the greater tubercle? So that there is a normal rounded shape of the shoulder. Next very important anatomical landmark onto the proximal aspect of the humerus is lesser tubercle. Now this lesser tubercle, it lies anterior to the anatomical neck. Here is the anatomical neck. Here anteriorly lies the lesser tubercle. Okay. Now what is the significance of lesser tubercle? It has, if you touch the bone, you can see that it has a smooth palpable muscular impression. Okay. So the lateral part, it forms the medial margin of the intertubercular sulcus. Now what is this intertubercular sulcus? There are two tubercles. One is the greater tubercle and other is the lesser tubercle. So in between them lies the intertubercular sulcus. So this lesser tubercle gives the attachment to subscapular muscle and also to the transverse ligament of the shoulder. Now we talk about intertubercular sulcus. Now this intertubercular sulcus is an indentation. You can very well appreciate it. It is a kind of an indentation which is between the two tubercle. It is sometimes also referred to as bicipital groove. Why do it refer to as bicipital groove? Because it has attachment of long tendon of biceps brachii. Okay, as well as there is ascending branch of the anterior circumflex humeral artery, which is located within the sulcus. Now the sulcus, it has a lateral lip, a medial lip, right? Now why there is importance of lateral lip and medial lip? Because this lateral lip gives attachment to pectoralis major muscle, whereas the medial lip, it gives attachment to the teres major, and in between the two lips lies the latissimus dorsi. Okay. Now what is the surgical neck? Surgical neck, it is a narrowing below the tubercle. Below the tubercle, the narrowing here is known as the surgical neck. Why it is called the surgical neck? Because this is a common fracture site. Next, we have the shaft. Okay. Now, in the shaft, we have this shaft is like a cylindrical shape, right? Where the distal half, if you see the distal half, it is triangular kind of a shape, right? And the whole of the shaft has three borders, that is anterior border, lateral border, and medial border. Okay, now the shaft contains three surfaces. One is anterior lateral, one is anterior medial, and the third is the posterior surface. Now, what are borders are there? There is anterior border. From where it is beginning? It is beginning from the greater tubercle, and it runs downward almost to the end of the bone. The proximal end of the anterior border, it is continuous with the lateral lip of intertubercular sulcus. Okay. Now when we talk about the lateral border, it begins just distal to greater tubercle. It thickens distally to form the lateral supracondylar ridge. This is the condyle, this is the lateral supracondylar ridge. The middle portion of the lateral border is rough V-shaped. If you see the lateral border, it will look like, it will look as in it is kind of a V-shaped. Okay, why is it kind of a V-shaped? Because this has a deltoid tubercle. And this deltoid tubercle gives attachment to the multipinnate muscle, that is deltoid. Now, when we talk about the medial border, it is more or less similar to the lateral border, that in the end it will form the medial supracondylar ridge distally. And the radial groove is a shallow groove, which is disrupting or interrupting the medial border in its medial third. Now what it is that the radial nerve and the deep brachial artery, they are located in this groove. Okay. Now when we talk about the surfaces, the anterolateral surface, it is anterolateral. So it will be in between the anterior and the lateral. So this is the anterolateral surface. It is smooth proximal surface and it is largely being covered by the deltoid muscle. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पे there is a why? Because there is a V-shaped tubercle which is the deltoid tubercle or deltoid tuberosity. Middle of the surface of the anterolateral surface, we will see the lateral around the middle of the surface, the lateral portion of the brachialis muscle. The lateral portion of the brachialis muscle, it is originating from the distal part of the surface as well as from the proximal 2/3 of the lateral supracondylar ridge. Now, when we talk about the anteromedial surface, it is located between the anterior and the medial borders. So, it is beginning proximally from the floor of the intertubercular sulcus. Okay. So, it is going like this. This is the intertubercular sulcus. It is going like this. This is the anterior medial surface of the humerus. This is the anterior medial surface of the humerus. Okay. Now, this anterior medial surface, it gives attachment to the coracobrachialis muscle, whereas the distal half of the surface is largely being covered by the brachialis muscle. Okay. Now, when we see the posterior surface, okay, this is the posterior surface. This is the posterior surface, which is in between the medial and the lateral borders. Okay. Now, this posterior surface is being bounded by the medial and lateral borders. Okay. So, it has mostly medial head of the triceps brachii muscle. And a ridge on there is a ridge on the proximal third, which gives attachment to the lateral head of the triceps brachii. Okay. Now when we talk, this was all about the proximal end and the shaft. Now we come to the distal end, which consists of both articular as well as non-articular parts. Okay. The articular part of the humerus are the modified condyles. Modified condyles, which are widely transverse. They articulate with ulna as well as radius. The non-articular part are the medial and the lateral condyles. Medial and the lateral condyles, as well as the olecranon fossa and coronoid process. Okay. Now, where is this trochlea? Trochlea is medially. This is the trochlea. See, this is the trochlea. This is shaped like a pulley and it covers the anterior, posterior and inferior surface of the medial condyle of the humerus. This trochlea will articulate with the ulna at the trochlear notch. Okay. Now, when the elbow is an extension, the posterior and inferior aspect of the trochlea, it is in contact with the ulna. But when the elbow is in flexed position, the posterior part is no longer in contact as the trochlear knot slides down. Okay. Now, where is the capsulum? Capsulum It is a convex, this is the capsulum. Capsulum is a convex and rounded projection that is covering the anterior and inferior surface of the lateral condyle of the humerus. Okay. It does not cover the posterior surface. It articulates with the head of the radius. Now, this in extension, what happens? The inferior surface of the capsulum, it comes in contact with the radius. But in flexed position, the radial head will slide towards the anterior aspect of the humerus. Okay. These were the articulating parts. Now, talking about the medial epicondyle, which can be palpated also on the human body like this. So this is the medial epicondyle. This is the medial epicondyle, which is a blunt projection which is superior medial to the medial condyle. Medial condyle says superior medially. And the ulnar nerve, which is coming from the brachial plexus, it is crossing its smooth posterior surface. And it is also palpable in this location. The superficial muscles of the anterior compartment of the forearm or the flexor compartment of the forearm, they are originating from the anterior surface of the medial epicondyle. These muscles are flexor carpi ulnaris, palmaris longus, flexor carpi radialis, and pronator teres. Okay. Now, where is the lateral epicondyle? See, this is the condyle, lateral border of the humerus, ends at the lateral epicondyle. This is the lateral epicondyle. Okay. This lateral epicondyle, it gives attachment to the posterior compartment of the forearm or to the extensor compartment of the forearm. Muscles like brachioradialis, extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis, extensor digitorum, extensor digiti minimi, extensor carpi ulnaris, and acronis. Now, when we talk about olecranon fossa, it can be seen onto the posterior aspect of the humerus. So, olecranon fossa is a small hollow that is located superior to the trochlea. Okay. Superior to the trochlea. What happens superior to the trochlea in elbow extension? What happens? The tip of the olecranon process, it launches into this olecranon fossa. Now, where is the coronoid fossa? Coronoid fossa, it is a small hollow that is located on the anterior surface superior to the trochlea. Okay, then we have the coronoid fossa is medially, right? On the contrary, you can see another fossa which is very near to the lateral epicondyle, which is called the radial fossa. So lateral to the coronoid fossa, superior to the capsulum, there is another depression, which is known as the radial fossa. It is also named as the margin of the head of the radius, which gets launched when there is full flexion. Okay. Then This was all about the humerus. So let's have a quick revision about humerus. The humerus is the largest and the longest bone. It has three parts: proximal end, shaft, and the distal. Proximal has some important landmarks like the head of the humerus, the anatomical neck, greater tubercle, lesser tubercle, intertubercular sulcus, and surgical neck. Next, the shaft has two important identification. One is the deltoid tuberosity, which is present onto the anterior lateral surfaces. While talking about the borders, there are three borders: anterior border, lateral border, and medial border. Concomitant to that, there are three surfaces, that is anterior lateral surface, anterior medial surface, and posterior surface. When we come on to the distal aspect, laterally we can find the lateral condyle, lateral epicondyle, medial epicondyle, as well as just near to the anterior surface, we have the coronoid fossa and the radial fossa. Posteriorly, we have the olecranon fossa. Then we have trochila and the capsulum. Capsulum is onto the lateral aspect, the trochila is onto the medial aspect, onto the distal end of the humerus. So, and another very important thing is that proximally the humerus is articulating with the shoulder to form the glenohumeral joint or the shoulder joint, and distally the humerus is articulating with radius and ulna to form elbow joint.